Well, Brian Wang has been champing at the bit. He's been so excited about the progress that's happening in quantum computers and has wanted to get this on the record on my channel for a few days now. And finally, we were able to work our schedules around it. So Brian Wang is here, and Brian, glad to have you here. This quantum computer thing is huge, but
Right.
we don't get it. You're going to have to really get. You're going to have to explain it so that I can understand it. And if I kind of understand it, maybe the audience will get it. So I'll let you start.
Okay, so there's regular computers and then there's quantum computers. So regular computers, transistor, Intel, what they call CMOS, which is the wafers and semiconductor chips. And there's, now billions, sometimes trillions of transistors on every device. So, I think in our smartphones, the chip probably has like, I don't know, 10 billion, 100 billion transistors. So that's what we've been using for forever, and they've been improving, getting faster and faster. Moore's law, getting faster. So quantum computers, instead of 0 and 1 for the bit, for the most basic component of it, it's from 0 to 1 for the qubit, so the quantum bit. So that means it can have this whole statistical range of values between 0 and 1. And the other thing is that it can, when you put them together and you entangle them, they can massively search through a whole universe of possibilities based on how these 0 to 1 things entangle. So that's where they get to, there's, I don't know, 10 to the 69, number of atoms in the whole universe or something like that. And if you have, 100 qubits, you could have a state, a physical state representing every atom in the universe and beyond, right?
So what is the qubit though? What's a qubit?
So that's a 0 to 1. So it's a just like a transistor could a bit within, what a bit is, right, for sure. Yeah. So that's 0 or 1, right? So then if I have 8 bits, I can represent 256 things, right?
Right.
0, 1, whatever. But if I have 8 qubits, I think go like 2 to the 8, or some very large number of possibilities, from all those qubits. I don't have the exact number with it, but it just blows up exponentially in a very big way, where very few qubits become a huge number.
Now, is this qubit a physical thing? Is it like a transistor? Is it physical?
So there are a dozen different ways that they can represent and try to create qubits. You can do it with light, photonic quantum computers. You can do it with superconductors, and you can different kinds of superconductors. You can have the silicon with this electronic spin in it, neutral atoms, ions, so they can take the many physical things and then try to realize the quantum system.
I see.
So there's a large zoo of different ways to do it. There's hundreds of companies trying to do it, and a dozen different ways. So the leading one has been superconductor version.
I see.
So they have been doing that for a couple of decades in terms of like a commercial company. D-Wave Systems in Vancouver, who have visited their offices, they use what is called an adiabatic version of it versus the gate version of quantum computers. So multiple ways to do things with superconductors, and there's different kind of techniques to how they do it. So unfortunately, it's a bit complicated that way.
Yeah, we're not any of us planning to get into the business. All we want to so we're trying to do it at Randy level here. All right. So now you have these qubits.
Yeah.
And each qubit then are they complex to manufacture or to make or to create? Is there some reason why it is hard to get to the next level here in terms of making these qubits?
Yeah, it's because they are kind of barely working in many cases, right? So the big problem with it is error. That because there is that they're only barely working, that if they have like 2% chance of failure, 5% chance of failure, then it's difficult for me to start stacking them together to make a larger system. So that you're just using one or two, and then oftentimes it doesn't work. The example is like up, say, 2 years ago or a year ago, the best quantum chemical system would use 14 qubits, right? Even though we just had announcements of 1,000 qubits from IBM and other companies. In terms of like actually running a quantum program, they can only run about 14, right? Huh. Because the noise, the error rate gets so big that the picture becomes completely fused. If I was to we're looking at each other on whatever on the internet here on the video. If I take the resolution down to 4x4, right? Then we just have like 4 color blocks of things. And if I start adding in all the static, right, then I get you get no picture. Like people who used to have TVs would have a bunch of static and stuff like that, and then the picture, analog picture, you get too much static, and then you can't see anything, right? It's like a massive snowstorm. Younger people may not know that, but it was a very common thing with radio, with TV, with broadcast, that when you get too much air, static, then you can't tell what's happening. I can't see the picture. I can't understand the noise, and from the sound, right? And that's what happens with quantum computers in a huge way, where basically you hit this cliff of too much air, and no matter how many tricks I try, no matter if I got like 100 PhDs trying to pull something out of that, trying to use some processing thing to get the picture out, it becomes a useless exercise. It physically exponentially just gets insane. So
it feels like FSD.
Yes,
it's like you got this error rate, and you need to get it to a bunch of nines of not doing errors. Then, right? You're trying to reduce the number of errors in a given media, and you've got multiple medias that people are playing with that might be the most successful. Nobody knows which media is really going to be the most successful, and the success is basically on being able to create them with as few errors as possible, so that you can now integrate them, because the integration is where the error thing starts to become a problem. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. And basically that the potential of being able to solve things mathematically impossible, become possible if it works out, right? That I can get the error away.
This is the speed thing then. Do I understand? You're going to multiply the speed of computation times thousands, tens of thousands.
Like taking from the lifetime of the universe down to an hour kind of thing. It's that kind of thing. It's like, so the crude simple form is it would take decades, and now I can do it in a minute, right? So that goes to some disputes around. That's the ultimate potential of it, is like from impossible to possible, awesome. From lifetime of the universe to a short time. But it's only really hard problems that are worthwhile, mathematically hard problems that are worthwhile, because if it's just kind of difficult, I can just, use a supercomputer, spend a bit of time, and then solve it, right? And supercomputers are very powerful. So it has to be a insanely hard problem mathematically for me to like, and it's worth the trouble to try and figure out how to solve this thing.
Right. All right. So FSD again.
Right. FSD again.
Right. So lots and lots of things that have to do with artificial intelligence would certainly fall into that category. You mentioned, I think, in the green room, even logistics sometimes are very complex.
Yeah.
And so you can all of a sudden start applying some of this to that. Is that correct?
Yeah. So the major categories are AI machine language, that there could be ways to make that better. The optimization logistic type problems, which is all kinds of complexity in finance, other things are there. And then chemistry, where we could discover new molecules and then biology kind of stuff. And then there's things around security, code breaking that are there. And then like 15 other areas, but those are the four.
Gotcha. And so the current state of the art, you've just been attending a conference all this week, and the current state of the art, people are saying that we are now, I was unclear, do we have quantum computers doing anything useful now?
No, we do not have them doing anything. There's things that are useful, but not better than regular computers.
Not better than regular computers. And what's the timeline now on getting from not better than regular computers to useful, I guess, financially beneficial applications?
So now we could be down to 2 to 4 years.
2 to 4 years.
Right. Based on a breakthrough that was announced at the conference, which was getting to, because of all this error, then it was hugely important to get to error-corrected quantum computers, right? That if we don't have error correction, just have some kind of like error suppression or other thing like that, we try and get away with error correction. Then people kind of thought you kind of top out at 100 qubits, right? That's the most you can do, but then you have trouble using them, which was, like I said, the best quantum chemistry thing used like 14 qubits like last year or 2 years ago, right? Okay. But now IBM has a system on the cloud using the superconducting ones with another company called Q Control, where you could then use 40, maybe even 50 or 60, depending upon your application, qubits by cleaning it up. And that's not even full error correction. It's just really good error management, error suppression type stuff. So that's very useful because that's roughly at the level of a supercomputer simulating, pretending to be quantum, and then giving you 40 qubits, 60 qubits.
Okay, so existing supercomputers can come at a problem the way that a future quantum computer would attack it.
Right.
And so because we can do that, there's a level of which the real quantum computers need to get in order to be financially viable.
Right. Yeah, I need to be better than
a simulation.
A simulation. I'd be better than simulation. Right.
Okay. And
we're kind of at that point.
Yeah. And it's like 2 to 4 years. And was there a breakthrough in chemistry or a breakthrough in, was it just a breakthrough in actual error reduction? And was there a reason for it? I mean, it may be so far above my head that I wouldn't, but is there a reason why there was a breakthrough?
Yes. So in terms of error correction, like we have error correction in our regular computers. So every, like 8th bit, we have a check bit that says, is this 0, 1 the right thing? And it's because the error rates are so low in semiconductors, I only need this one check bit to kind of like see that things haven't, been messed up. A cosmic ray didn't come in and hit something and flip something over, right? So there's very light overhead on the error correction.
I see.
Yeah. But for quantum computers, because there's so much error, then it's like I need 700 qubits to pretend to be 1 qubit.
I see.
So it's like I need to say, if I need to tell you 415, right? If I have to do that for a regular computer, I can say 415 or some number up to 10 million. I only need one other check bit to say, to make sure that the message got through. For a quantum computer, because I need like up to 700 or 1,000, something like that, I need to say 4 1,000 times to kind of make sure that you kind of hear the 4. And I need to say 1 1,000 times to get that. I need 5 1,000 times. So it's this level of overhead of like how much repetition. And repetition is just one of the ways they do it. There's other things like I surround the qubit with many other check qubits. And I can't measure the one that I want to look at, because if I do, because of quantum, I broke it, right? It because quantum is, if I look at it, it resolves and then it collapses to another state. So I can't look at it. So I have to check around it and say, is the stuff around it check? Because I can check those things, and then if those are good, I assume the thing in between is good, right? So that's the kind of like trickiness around getting all the errors. You have to repeat it a lot. You have to do stuff. So what was done was that they have implemented a form of error detection in some cases to know that there was a mistake made, and then the more complicated error correction where I detect it and then I fix it, right? So there was a mix of detection and fixing in this thing that they did, which goes to, yeah.
So then my understanding is that one of the big areas for this is security. Right. Obviously, one of the questions that a lot of people have been asking is, what happens when I'm driving along in my FSD car and somebody hacks in and drives me over a cliff? So Elon says, well, we're so far ahead in our security systems and blah, blah, blah. We're, nobody's going to be able to hack in, and we're hiring hackers all the time, are encouraging people to try to hack into the system, and we'll pay them if they're successful. And so we're using all these techniques and methods, but this sounds to me like it would be like the next level of security if you could put this kind of power into creating blockchains or whatever the next thing is that is going to envelop the information and keep it away from hackers.
Right. So it does go next level with it, but it takes time to get to that next level, because the level of security is you do something mathematically that would say, okay, with regular supercomputers, it would take you decades to break this code or something like that, or hundreds of years, 1,000 years, or whatever that, based on, even with advancing, you can say, based on math, I'm good, right? But now, because this quantum stuff could change the rules around how the math works, it could break it. But it's still not, instantaneous magic. If I have, 2,000 bits, which is the 2048 RSA code, I still need 4,000 to 6,000 error-corrected qubits to break RSA, right? But now that we've gotten 48, kind of, and then they're saying with 100, maybe the few thousand might not be that far away, right? So before that, they were working on this, people saying, oh, I don't think a decade, 2 decades, something like that. Now it's kind of like very plausibly within 2 to 4 to 5 years, we could have thousands of error-corrected qubits, and then the underlying security of our financial system and for Bitcoin and crypto could be at risk. You have to stop everything else, but that takes time. There is a new plan coming out next year, which will take until maybe 2035 to fully transition over. In the meantime, you could be vulnerable, and it's kind of like, well, too late. Those codes could be broken if that happens, right? So we have to.
But we have both sides of that, Brian. So you have the side of which is I now have a quantum computer that's operational that I can use to break the code of existing systems because because it's so fast and so capable. But at the same time, I could make new security systems using the quantum computers that would then be basically, well, as impossible as what's being used for Bitcoin now.
Right. So on the security side, there's quantum networking, which is that whole collapsing, when I look at it, thing is that if I have these live qubits within or quantum structures within the communication line, if I can detect someone spying on it for sure because they've looked at it, right? So I can detect spying using physics to know that you've hacked.
I see.
But all this stuff is a cat and mouse game, and there's a lot of complexity around fooling things. But it takes the cat and mouse game to this new territory of one side be able to do something, but then they know that you can do that, so it's makes things not easy to solve, but it does take it to another level for sure.
Takes it another level, yeah. And again, probably you're saying 2 to 5 years before they are useful. If everything goes well, 2 to 5 years before there's useful opportunity here, and then of course it'll be a couple of years after that before these applications begin to become a thing. So looking maybe at the end of the decade when we consumers might begin to see something that's happening out of the quantum world that would actually impact us on a day-to-day basis.
Except for the fact that the change to our whole financial system and security computer stuff will start happening next year.
Okay.
Right? Because the fact that the real chance that this could happen means we have to start changing now. We even should have started like 5-10 years ago to change, right, and to say go to new protection systems because of the fact that this could happen, right? Because it's like I can record some encoded financial transaction, and I could record that information. I can't break the code. I can't break the message. Russia said something. I can't break that code, but I can record it. And then in 5 years, I can then decode it. So then the question is your secret still relevant then? Because I just read what you did 5 years ago. If your secret was important enough where it matters that I break it in 5 years, I can now break. I can just record everything and then store and decode later, right?
Well, speaking of these various powers of Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, is there any speculation out there as to whether any of these bad guys are advancing along at the same rate or better or faster rates than we are?
China is the one who's very advanced, spending tons of money, billions of dollars on their quantum stuff. So because of the national security thing, there's the United States and Europe and the rest of the world, and then there's China doing their stuff. But they are very advanced with their quantum. They demonstrated a quantum networking thing to a satellite, a few years ago. But when I talk to security experts, they kind of poo-poo it and say, well, they can only send one code every day or something like that. It does demo that it works, and then they have other security things that they've implemented within their network for this quantum security. But there's other ways to do things. I could encode something on a USB stick and then transmit it, like hand carry it or do something. So then the rate of information is something. But in terms of like China's quantum computers are really good. They're spending a lot of money on it. Their quantum scientists are really good. Their encoding, decoding stuff is good. So they're the main competitor. Russia had a problem in that they had a lot of really smart guys, but after the collapse of the Soviet Union, their engineering quality kind of went down. So their good guys are now like 60. And and they don't have enough money and funding. China has money funding to actually be competitive in quantum.
Got it. Got it. Hey, Brian, this has been fascinating as always. And the implications for Tesla, for Bitcoin, for just regular bank security, and eventually for everyday life are huge. You know, we always want to keep thinking about that next big future. Yeah. And for those who have just listened to this and been fascinated even a little bit, you should be running over to next big future all the time. And Brian and I are going to make it, you guys are going to get the first notification. Brian and I are going to start a new YouTube channel based on next big future. It'll be a weekly show where we talk about 4, 5, 6 items each week that have shown up on next big future that need a little more, you know, a little more conversation that would be useful on video. So look forward to that channel, maybe in a week or so. And other than that, Brian, any last thoughts on the whole business of quantum computers?
I think that there's a lot of companies there and that are working on things. There's about $55 billion has been invested into quantum computers, huge companies, and a lot of activity going on there. So it's a big, huge race that needs to be kind of closely watched, and it impacts, you know, logistics, space, everything. It will fundamentally change a lot of computing. You won't replace our regular computers, but it will add on and be this extra thing that will get more and more important over time.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. All right, so you know what to do. Hit the like and hit the subscribe, hit the notify, join Patreon, join Brian's Patreon too. And then there was a great video yesterday. If you didn't see it yet, it's the #1 video that's ever been on my channel. Larry Goldberg and I discussing the 48-volt system in great detail. He broke it down so beautifully into bite-sized pieces that anybody could understand with great graphics and everything else. And it's now well over 20,000 views, which is a record breaker for my channel. And see, I'll put the card for that right up. I think it'll be right up here to see where it goes. Anyway, so you want to go back and take a look at that. And other than that, hey, thanks, Brian. And to all of you out there, it's been great talking to you.
Thanks, Randy.